If you're living in New York City, I have some really bad news for you. Let's talk about it. How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we got to talk about New York City Mayor Eric Adams announcing some deep cuts to city services as a result of the migrant crisis. All the illegal aliens, asylum seekers, whatever you want to call them, flooding into the city require a lot of money to the tune of billions of dollars. So if you are a regular normie, taxpaying citizen of New York City, your services are going to be cut to compensate. Imagine that. Your taxpayer money will be given to them. So when they're sent to a shelter in Brooklyn and they don't want to go there because it's too far, it's not nice enough, that's your money that they're pretty much just scoffing at because it's not really enough. It's not really what they're wanting. If you are struggling to pay bills, struggling to pay rent, and your safety is at jeopardy as a result of the cuts, oh well, no big deal, because diversity is our strength. Come one, come all. We are a sanctuary city and sanctuary state in New York. Now, luckily, I don't live in New York. If you live up there, I'm really sorry for you. Now, we're going to get into all the details of what exactly is cut and by how much. But first, let's get into what Eric Adams said. And if you want to see this address, I will link to the entire thing in the box without my commentary. If you're on IG, visit a link in the bio, go to the corresponding article on the website. But without further ado, let's go ahead and roll it.
My fellow New Yorkers, in recent months, our administration has delivered for you over and over again. Jobs are up, crime is down, and every day we're delivering for working people.
Now, if you're living in New York, do you think that he's telling the truth so far? Is this message on point so far? Y'all let me know what you think about that in the comments below.
But for months, you've heard me talk about the fiscal challenges our city is facing as the cost of the asylum seeker humanitarian crisis have skyrocketed, placing great strain on our budget. At the same time, COVID-19 stimulus funding is sunsetting. We have been clear that without significant timely action from our state and federal partners.
We're going to talk about that in a minute because remember, this has been kind of a back and forth between Eric Adams and the Biden administration. We will get into that in just one moment. Hang tight.
We will be forced to make some tough choices. As we have made these hard choices, the well-being of New Yorkers has always been our top priority. We have not only managed taxpayer dollars responsibly and balanced the budget as required by law, but we have done so while minimizing disruption to the services New Yorkers rely on. In September, we directed every city agency to reduce city-funded spending by 5%. Since then, every agency has found savings with minimum disruption to services and no tax increases. Our efforts were successful.
So was that not enough? That was in September. We're now in November, approaching December, approaching 2024. Are we going to make bigger cuts? Are we going to make more broad, wide, sweeping cuts? What's going on here, Eric Adams?
Today, we are delivering our November financial plan update with a balanced budget, just like you and your families must do when you sit down at your kitchen table and pay your bills every month. But while we succeeded, make no mistake, we are not out of the woods. We added billions of dollars to care for the migrants. COVID funding is sunsetting, and we must close a $7 billion budget gap in the coming fiscal year. That is the reality we are facing. And if circumstances don't change dramatically, city agencies will be forced to reduce city funding spending by 5% two more times within the next 6 months.
Whoa, wait a minute. 2 more times. So you guys, if you know more about this, if you guys live in the city, if you guys are more aware of how this whole thing works, let me know in the comments. But so they're going to reduce spending by 5% 2 more times. So they already cut spending by 5% in September. Then they're going to cut it by another 5%, Or was the 5% cut temporary just for September and then it went back to normal? Or is it going to be permanent? Then they're going to cut 5 more and then 5 more for a grand total of 15. Y'all please help me out here in the comments and let me know if my math is mathing or not.
That would mean disruptions to the services we all rely on. We cannot afford to be divided as a city in this moment. We must come together and speak with one voice to Albany and Washington, D.C. to get the support we need. We urge you to join us in that call. I have been in this city through good times and difficult times. Despite the challenges ahead of us, we will continue to come back stronger because that is the New York City way.
All right, so there we have it. Eric Adams talking about we're going to cut more and more because we got to take care of the migrants. A $7 billion, hole in the budget. We got to close it. We got to balance it. What are we going to do? We're going to cut your services. We're going to keep on bringing the migrants and letting them just do whatever they want to do. But we're going to go ahead and cut that. Now, let's go ahead. There's an article we're going to get to look at exactly what has been cut. This is going to be on New York Times. And of course, I will link to this in the box. If you're on IG, visit a link. This is from today, which is Thursday, November the 16th, 2023. You see the headline, Eric Adams slashes budgets for police, libraries, and schools. Mr. Adams said the migrant crisis made the deep budget cuts necessary. Progressive Democrats called the reductions dangerous and unnecessary. Well, at a certain point, money don't grow on trees and you have a finite amount of it. So if you got to pay billions upon billions of dollars for the migrants and you still want to keep city services at 100, at a certain point, you're not going to be able to do both. Either you got to cut the migrant expenditures or you got to cut city services. What are you going to do? All right. Now, if it's me, I would cut the migrant expenditures by not letting them be in New York City. I would be going to Washington, D.C. and rally Joe Biden to close the border. And speaking of that, this is very interesting timing because remember, Eric Adams is being investigated for some campaign finance violation allegations, talking about some improper money from Turkey to a construction company. And then they raided his quote unquote top fundraiser, Brianna Suggs. And the funny part about the raid is that it happened when Eric Adams was on the way to D.C. Like he was literally on the bird, on the plane to D.C. to speak to Joe Biden about the border. And as soon as he landed, he discovers that the raid happened. So he had to go right back to New York City and he was not able to have that meeting. Now, was that a coincidence? It just happened to raid his girlfriend, top fundraiser's house when he was on the way to speak to Joe Biden about the migrant crisis. And as a result, you couldn't do it. Was that a coincidence? Is it a coincidence now that he has to cut the city services? And he's talking about a $7 billion budget shortfall. I don't know, but I digress. Let's get into the article to see exactly what's being cut and by how much. All right, Mayor Eric Adams announced painful budget cuts to New York City services on Thursday that will freeze police hiring. Here we go. Here's some details. And close libraries on Sunday, and warned that more budget cuts will be necessary without additional federal funding to manage migrant crisis. Now, one thing I give him credit on, he did not shy away from saying, hey, federal government, please help. I figured once the whole thing with the Brianna Suggs raid, all that kind of stuff happened, he might want to fall back because it could have been a message from the federales like, hey, don't talk about the migrant crisis and blame us or you're going to have a problem. I thought I might have been the message and he might have heeded the warning, but he has not apparently. Let's keep on going. The budget cuts would bring the number of police department officers below 30,000, below 30,000, slash the education department budget by $1 billion over 2 years and delay the rollout of composting in the Bronx and Staten Island, one of the mayor's signature initiatives to address rats and climate change. The cuts will also weaken two popular programs, summer school and universal pre-kindergarten. So a lot of services people need that are regular law-abiding citizens that would improve their life, reducing the rat population, helping out kids with early education in general, the safety of citizens by reducing the number of officers. You see, all these things are going on And how is that going to help you if you are a New York City resident? All it's going to do is just make you be in a more dangerous place off of what? So migrants can come in and use your taxpayer money to breed anchor babies like rabbits and everything else. It's a mess. It is a complete mess. Mr. Adams said in his statement that he had to make cuts across city agencies in response to the rising cost of the migrant crisis, slowing tax revenues, and the ending of federal pandemic aid. So this is just more of what we just saw in the talk. So the cuts to the budget are part of a $110 billion budget. So that's how much the budget is, but they're $7 billion short. So what are we going to do? We got to cut some services, and that's just what it is. All right. And I will link to this article and the video from the beginning in the description box so you're able to see them and read them for yourself. But as I close, I want to say this. Nobody can be surprised here. You're going to see the same thing happen all over the country and a lot of these big cities that want to also be sanctuary cities. Chicago, Illinois, Los Angeles. A lot of them are already doing it. We're seeing the whole defund the police thing going on. And a part of me wonders, was defund the police something that came from the federales themselves to make these cities more dangerous to people, to make them more reliant on the federal government to keep begging them for money, to do whatever they say so they can get more money? I can't really tell, but I think I'll leave that right there for now. And what say you? What's your take on what Eric Adams said? Do you live in New York City? Do you live in another big city that could be affected in the same way? You're trying to spend billions upon billions on the so-called migrants to accommodate them, to help them, to feed, clothe, wash, house them. But what about your regular everyday citizens? Okay, if you're uber rich, it's not going to be a big problem. If you are living on the street smoking crack, you're going to continue to smoke crack all day. But if you're a hardworking middle-class person like many of us are, what about you? You're going to feel the squeeze. Talking about no tax increases. Well, if the services are going to be lower, but I'm still paying the same amount of taxes, in essence, there is a tax increase. I'm not paying more money, but I'm getting less bang for my buck. So what part of the game is that? That's like shrinkflation. I'm paying the same price for a lower quantity. It doesn't make much sense to me. But whatever your thoughts are, please let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.